I'll try to modify two C++ files here. And I will create a feature one branch of these changes. Commit these changes to the branch. And I'll go back to the master. And then I'll create a feature 2 branch. And then create this branch. So we have a master branch as our main integration, and we have two feature branches, feature 1 and feature 2. If we do a git def, feature 1, so we see that between the master branch and the feature 1 branch, these two files have changed. And in the feature 2 branch, only these files have changed. So when we do static analysis, if we analyze the master branch, we analyze everything, all of the C and C++ code. But then if we do our work, we localize the changes to their own branch, like feature 1, feature 2. And then it is only prudent that we only statically analyze the files that have changed between the main stream master branch and the feature branch. In that case, only these two files, since these are the only two files that change between them. And in this case, only this one file. So let me go to the master branch. Now, first, let me create a PDF file for this project. A PDF file has been created. I'll launch an IDE. And I will create a workspace in this location. And I will load the PDF file. Project's now loaded to the IDE. Suppose we're going to statically analyze this project. I will select the top node here and right click. For example purposes, let me select Metro C 2023 and static analysis is now ongoing for all of the C and C++ files for this project. Now, static analysis takes time to complete. If the file is big, uh, it will definitely take its own time. The static analysis has completed, so the files that are checked are listed here. You can see files checked, and these are the files that are checked. You can see the results here. Okay, so right now we are in the master branch, but suppose we're going to switch to the feature one branch. First, let me delete these results. Now I will switch to the feature one branch. And let's review what are the files that has changed from the mainstream master branch and feature one branch. And it would only be these two files. So we need to use the output of getDiff, this output here, as the input of static analysis. So this will prevent analyzing all of the files in the master branch, and that makes sense because our task is only focused on the list of files affected by this branch. In order to do that, we need the configuration in the IDE, and I prefer that this configuration be in a text file. A configuration that is in a text file is more transparent and more easy to track. And that configuration is this one, my.properties. Let's try to take a look. So really there are only two lines that needs to change here. This one, I highlight them here. So we put the path of the project in the file system. This one, this is the current directory, and we need to put the get URL. This is mandatory. For the rest, they stay there, but let me just explain what they are. This control should be true, and there are lots of filter modes available, but for this case, since we are comparing two branches, then we should select the branch. Of course, obviously the type is Git because we're using GitHub as our source control. And this one, as is explained here, if you don't want to include the header files included in C and C++ files, you should set this false, otherwise set it to true, and verbosity is obviously what it means. So like I said, settings inside the text property files is more transparent, more centralized, and more easy to track rather than doing the changes in the IDE. For example, these two lines here, we can do these changes in the IDE by going to here, Parasoft, Preferences, and New, Get. This is where you specify the uh, location, and this is the specify the get URL. But it would be difficult to track having those settings hidden in the IDE menu. So it's better to be these settings in a text file for obvious reasons. Now, this text file could have any name. So we'll introduce or let the IDE new of this text file. You can do that by going to Parasoft, Preferences, and in the settings file, browse to that configuration file, centralized configuration file. So here we have centralized our changes through this one properties file. It's easy to track and transparent. Apply. Secondly, we go to the scope and authors. Instead of use file system to control scope, the scope is now source control. Apply. Okay, so right now we are at feature one branch, and the diff of feature one and master is these two files here, and with the presence of these MyDev properties configured, let's try to run static analysis. In fact, I can just rerun the previous static analysis. I'll click this button here, rerun test. So the scope now has changed to a version controlled between two branches, and the depth of those two branches will be the input to static analysis. So I expect that not all of the files will be statically analyzed because that takes time, and only the diff of the two branches will be passed through static analysis. And indeed, you can see here that the files analyzed are just the two files, exactly the diff of the two branches. You can see here the result is much smaller and they came back faster. We delete this. Right now we are in the feature one branch. Suppose we're going to switch to the feature two branch. And let's try to review by doing a diff. For the feature 2 branch, only these files has changed. Let's rerun static analysis again. So always take note that get branch is corresponds to the state of the hard disk here, of the active branch. Okay, so the file check is only atm.cpp. It corresponds to what is the git diff between these two branches. Only these files statically analyzed, not all of the files. The result is much smaller, faster. Okay, you can always We can always rename this. Did we try this? Minded properties bug. So now there's no properties file. Let's try. So let me rerun the analysis. But take note that in this situation now, our scope and controls is still checked. See this one. But without configuration, I expect there's some setup problems. So it's analyzing all the files. And you notice this error here. Since uh, we check the source control as the mode, but there's no configuration, so it's complaining about this missing key value pair. Like I said, we can have this configuration in the IDE by going to Parasoft, Preferences, New, and here select Get, and the working folder is here, and the URL is and I'll just type the master branch or you see check connection, apply, and now with these configurations configured here, let me rerun the analysis again. So take note that the properties file is still uh, disabled because it was renamed to my.properties.back. And static analysis has completed, but because we set those settings in the IDE and there's no more complaining of that particular configuration. However, it's not very obvious here where that setting is being made because it's in the IDE. As you can see, another way to configure this is this. For example, um, filter 2, just curious, let me run one more thing. Test configuration, duplicate the static analysis rule and select test only files modified between the main branch and the main integration stream, which is master. So let me try to be specific. I'll type master here. Let me run the configuration. Okay. So it's not being picked up. Let me put back the properties file to complete the configuration. And we run analysis. Feature 2. So now the diff is being detected. And the files analyzed is atm.cpp. So the thing to watch out for here is when you get diff, the two branches should be different. So if you diff master to master, then zero files will be detected. And then the other thing is you need to switch at the file system level, like um, feature 1. Let me try to change the branch here. Sorry, it's not there. It's in preferences. Feature 1. So I don't think the IDE will do a checkout. Right now, our branch is feature 2. It's going to, oh, it did. Yep. So I think that's the, okay, so two files have been detected. Let me see it. Okay. So let me experiment further. Let me delete this configuration here. let me remove this, apply and close, and then let me make the changes in the properties file then. So this would be the reference branch master, and we are comparing it with feature one branch. How about that? Okay, so we are in the feature 2 branch, but the configuration is doing a get diff in the feature 1 branch. So let's try. Okay, so there's definitely some level of control there. Okay, let me do an edit. How about feature 2? Rerun analysis. Okay, so as expected. So I think I can use Symlink then. For example, I can do my properties to prop1 dot I think feature 1 dot properties, and the one is I will name it to the branch, and then I will remove the properties. So feature 1 should refer to the feature 1 branch, and feature 2 should refer to the feature branch, and then I will create a symlink feature 1 okay. The properties is a symlink to feature 1 branch. Okay, we can even go back to the master branch. So this my properties is being set here, but now it's an adjustable symlink to many properties file. Okay, right now the symlink is pointing to feature 1. Let's run static analysis. So as you can see, having your configuration in a text file is more flexible, more transparent, and easier to manage. So we have these two diff files. How about if I change the symlink to feature 2? Now this one is pointing to feature 2. We run analysis. And we have the expected file check being the diff of the two branches. So I guess I have to recall that we can set the settings in the IDE, but if we do the settings in a text file, we can leverage more advantages by using symlink, and the settings is more centralized. Instead of being hidden in the IDE, can copy it to other project, and there's more flexibility here. So that's it. We're able to diff only the lesson files that change between branches, and this get diff became input to static analysis to prevent redoing static analysis of the entire project comprising of mini C and C++ files. Thank you.